Today, we are in an under-the-radar Tuscan city, with the most amazing churches, Renaissance art, and a steak that almost defeated me. First question. How do you spell this place? Because if you Google, you'll see both Pistoia and Pistoia. Here's the thing. Pistoia was the Roman name. The word comes from pistoi, meaning baker. This town was famous for bread, way before it was famous for churches. Fast forward a couple thousand years, and Italians smoothed it into Pistoia. So today, if you want to sound like a local, drop the R. It's Pistoia. This little city is stuffed with stories. Vasari built a dome that rivals Florence's, Giovanni Pisano carved a pulpit here that'll make your jaw drop, and I nearly got knocked out by a 1.2 kilo Fiorentina steak. Let me tell you, parking in Pistoia is not a sprint, it's a gentle dance. We wanted something super convenient, ideally steps from the old town. Which, of course, meant circling twice. Italian parking tip. Blue lines mean you pay. White lines are free unicorns. Rare, but they exist. But if you're not driving, don't sweat it. Pistoia is an easy day trip. Trains run from Florence in about 40 minutes. Just hop off at Pistoia station and walk straight into history. We slipped into this little alley that suddenly opened into the historic center. You know that feeling when a city surprises you with how instantly atmospheric it is. Pistoia's old town is compact. The whole city's about 236 square kilometers, with a population around 89,000. So, bigger than a village, but still totally walkable. And the best part is that everything we're about to see is within a few blocks. We will be church hopping, museum spotting, and steak digesting without even realizing how much we've walked. The vibe here in late May? Perfect. 24 degrees, sunny but not melting. Lunchtime crowds were just settling in, cafes buzzing, locals taking their breaks. I was starving, and by this point, my brain was only thinking about one thing. Steak. But not just any steak. This was the legendary bistecca alla Fiorentina. Tuscany's pride. Tuscany's heavyweight champion. A steak so big, it could qualify as carry-on luggage. Look at this thing. That's 1.2 kilos of pure carnivorous glory. Ordered medium cooked, because Florentines don't mess around. If you ask for well done, they'll probably send you straight back to Florence. Throw in the sides, wines, and coffees and you've got a Tuscan feast under 40 euros per head. Not bad for lunch in Italy. Lunch devoured, we waddled our way towards one of Pistoia's most iconic landmarks, the Basilica of Our Lady of Humility. Back in Roman times, Pistoia was a military outpost, guarding the routes between Florence and Lucca. By the Middle Ages, it had grown into a fierce little republic, rich, ambitious, and sometimes a bit scrappy with its neighbors. Florence in particular. Think of it as Florence's younger sibling who didn't always play nice. In the 12th and 13th centuries, Pistoia boomed. Bankers, merchants, and wool traders built towers that scraped the Tuscan sky. The city was so influential that Pistoians are said to have introduced the word pistol to the English language. Apparently, small handguns were first made here, and the name stuck. How's that for legacy? Later, under Florentine control, Pistoia mellowed into an artistic hub. Artists like Giovanni Pisano, one of Italy's great sculptors, left their mark here. And then there was Giorgio Vasari, Florence's golden boy, painter, architect, and let's be honest, the ultimate art influencer of the Renaissance. And here's the thing. You don't have to flip through history books to see their legacy. Because oh yes, right now, we're walking straight into Vasari's own masterpiece here in Pistoia. The Basilica of Our Lady of Humility. First thing that hits you? Silence. That thick, velvety quiet you only find in old churches. I swear, even my stomach stopped growling from lunch the moment we stepped in. Vasari built this dome to rival Brunelleschi's in Florence. And while I'll let Florentines keep bragging rights, standing here, you realize Pistoia was never just a side character in Tuscany's story. It was right in the thick of it. This basilica was commissioned by the Medici, designed by Vasari, and here's what really struck me. Unlike Florence, where you're shoulder to shoulder with selfie sticks, here you can stand in the middle of Vasari's vision and just breathe. No rush. No crowd. Just you, the stone, and 500 years of history watching over you. Look up and there it is. Vasari's dome, soaring nearly 60 meters high. After soaking in Vasari, we needed some air, and boy, did Pistoia deliver. While Florence hogged the spotlight, Pistoia quietly kept its treasures intact. Today, that's why wandering these streets feels like opening a Renaissance time capsule, but without elbowing through tour groups. So far we have learnt that Pistoia gave the world both bread and weapons. Have you ever been to a place where you feel like it should be famous, but you're secretly glad it isn't? That's Pistoia. It's like Tuscany's best-kept secret that somehow stayed off the tour bus circuit. We are making our way towards the Monte Oliveto Park, or Area Verde as locals call it. I was amazed how this part of town felt so quiet, and it felt like it literally belonged to just the two of us, at least that was until we reached the park. The neighborhood around here is different from the old historic center. Here, it's where people live. Monte Oliveto Park is not massive. Here we're talking about around 2 hectares of green, but for a compact city like Pistoia, this patch of trees, benches, and winding paths is a real treasure. Let us enter the park, and we can enjoy the scenery around. It's the kind of patch that gives the medieval streets breathing room and gives us a mini nature fix without leaving town. This wasn't always a green space. Until the early 1970s, it was Monte Oliveto Stadium, a loud, bustling sports ground where Pistoians played football and even held velodrome bike races. After the stadium was demolished in 1972, the land transformed into this peaceful park. A phoenix from loud crowds to quiet strolls. Inside, you will find an 80 square meters greenhouse bar restaurant, made entirely of glass and steel. It's eco-friendly, open year-round. Cozy with a wood stove in winter, breezy in summer. On Wednesdays, from roughly 3:30 to 6:30 p.m., you can catch a little organic farmers market. About 10 vendors with local cheeses, honey, olive oil, chestnut flour, even amazing vinegar. Just a short stroll out of Monte Oliveto Park is where San Francesco Church greets us, with this massive Gothic facade. It's funny how the vibe flips. One moment, kids running with gelato, locals sipping spritz in the park, and then suddenly, this solemn, ancient presence towering in front of you. Now, San Francesco is one of Pistoia's oldest Franciscan churches, founded around the 13th century. The facade you see is typical Tuscan Gothic, a mix of simple stonework with pointed arches, that kind of whisper rather than scream grandeur. That's very Franciscan. Humble yet solid. Look closely and you'll spot layers of time in the stones, patched and restored, like wrinkles on a wise old face. The neighborhood here feels different from the polished Duomo side of town. It's less postcard perfect, more lived in. The Franciscans wanted their church close to the people, not just the elite. Step inside, and it's a whole other world. The ceilings soar high, ribbed like stone wings. The interior is vast, almost unexpectedly so. We walked in thinking, okay, simple facade, maybe it'll be modest. But no. It stretches wide, as if the friars back then had ambitions bigger than their sandals. What really grabs me are the frescoes. They're worn, yes, but they tell stories. St. Francis, moments from the Gospels, painted between the 13th and 14th centuries. Some are by artists, influenced by Giotto, which means you're literally standing under the brushstrokes that shaped early Renaissance art. Have you ever felt that strange mix of awe and coziness? Like, history is towering above you, but you also kind of want to sit here forever with a notebook. Step back outside, and the piazza itself feels like the church's front porch. Piazza San Francesco is large, leafy, with a mix of cobblestones and green corners. Right in the middle, you'll notice a monument to Giuseppe Garibaldi, Italy's revolutionary hero. Because of course, this is Tuscany, and Garibaldi is everywhere. And if you keep walking, you'll hit the Parterre di San Francesco. This isn't just a random name. Parterre was the old 19th century promenade and garden space, often linked with military parades or civic gatherings. Today, the area holds a cluster of historic buildings, including what once housed educational institutions. It's less touristy, more of a place locals cut through on errands. Which I actually love. It means you're brushing shoulders with real life, not just selfie sticks. It was starting to get hotter, and I found some shade under a tree, and sat on a bench right underneath, to catch my breath for a few minutes. Leaving the parterre, we weaved our way back toward the center, and this part of town felt like the in-between, half grand, half everyday. You've got these long narrow streets lined with Renaissance-era buildings, many of them repurposed. Some are now government offices, others are schools, and a few? They're just family apartments where laundry flaps like flags of everyday life. This neighborhood is quieter than the Duomo side, but it's got its own rhythm. The Franciscans settled here on purpose. This was the edge of medieval Pistoia, where artisans lived as leather workers, blacksmiths, coopers. As we wandered, the smells shift too. First, roasted coffee, then grilled meat, and just as I was getting hungry again, someone opened a door and I caught the whiff of laundry soap. Here's the thing. If you only stick to the main squares, you'll miss this vibe. And honestly, this is my favorite part of traveling. The aimless walks, the corners where you don't quite know what you'll find. Like right here, the path led us straight toward our next treasure, and this is the St. Andrew the Apostle Church. From the outside, it looks like another medieval church tucked into the fabric of the town, but inside, oh, you're in for a surprise. You'll see why in just a moment. Inside, it's darker than most Tuscan churches. Stone arches rise up into the gloom, and you feel the centuries pressing down. It's the kind of space that makes you lower your voice instinctively, even if you don't mean to. And then comes the fun part. On the side, there's a small slot where you drop €2. Suddenly, with a soft click, once you have inserted a €2 coin, it's like magic. The whole church lights up. It's like a reveal in a theater. The frescoes glow, the details jump out, and suddenly you're standing in one of the most magnificent spaces in Pistoia. The church was founded in the early medieval era, rebuilt around the 12th century, and over the years it became one of the city's most important parish churches. Inside, there is the pulpit by Giovanni Pisano, carved between 1298 and 1301. The church itself isn't huge, but every corner holds a story. Frescoes by local Pistoiese painters decorate the chapels, and some are faded, while some are still bursting with reds and blues. Before we dive into the heart of Pistoia, the Piazza del Duomo and San Zeno, quick pause. If you're loving this little journey with us, hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up. Trust me, you won't want to miss next week, when we wander through Prato, another Tuscan gem. Plus, it really helps us keep bringing these stories from hidden alleys, gorgeous churches, and delicious trattorias straight to you. As we leave Sant'Andrea behind, the street opens up into this little slice of everyday Pistoia. The stretch to the Museo dello Spedale del Ceppo is one of these walks that is quiet enough to notice little details, but busy enough to feel that pulse of life. And here we are, the Museo dello Spedale del Ceppo. Built in the 13th century, it was originally a hospital caring for the sick and the pilgrims. Walking up to it, you can almost feel the footsteps of generations of doctors, nuns, and patients echoing in the walls. What really grabs you is the frieze of the 7 works of mercy, made in majolica terracotta. It's like a comic strip in color, showing acts of compassion, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, caring for the sick. Inside, the museum is intimate but layered. You see old surgical tools, patient records, even frescoes that once decorated the wards. But we are not visiting the museum. Instead, we continued towards the Civic Museum and the Piazza del Duomo. The Civic Museum sits in the Palazzo del Governo, right near Monte dei Paschi di Siena, which is one of the oldest banks in the world. Imagine centuries of politics, commerce, and art intersecting here. And yes, this is still Tuscany, so you can sip an espresso while soaking it all in. Welcome to Piazza del Duomo, the beating heart of Pistoia. If streets were stories, this square would be the epic chapter. Look around. The Cathedral of San Zeno, the Baptistry of San Giovanni in Corte, and a cluster of historic palazzos. It's like the city decided to gather all its grandeur in one frame. First stop. The Baptistry of San Giovanni in Corte. Octagonal and elegant, this is where centuries of Pistoia's citizens were baptized. The exterior is striped like a Tuscan dessert, white and green marble, and the portals are decorated with delicate carvings. Inside, it's airy and luminous. The ceilings are coffered, frescoes peer down at you, and the baptismal font itself is a marvel. You really get why the city would put such care into a building meant for new beginnings. This little octagonal gem was built in the 14th century, though some parts date even earlier, and it has a footprint that feels intimate yet monumental. Roughly 30 meters across, just enough to hold a congregation while still feeling personal. The dome above is a low-key wonder. Coffered and painted, letting light spill in from small windows, creating soft, shifting patterns on the marble floor. Right opposite the baptistry is the crown jewel of Pistoia, and it is of course, the Cathedral of San Zeno. Construction started in the 10th century, with expansions and embellishments through the 12th century, giving it that Romanesque base with Gothic flourishes. The facade may look calm from a distance, but the details are incredible. Geometric marble patterns, bronze doors depicting saints and biblical scenes, and that bell tower standing tall like a sentinel over the square. Step inside, and it's breathtaking. The interior is massive. Long nave, high vaulted ceilings, and side chapels that feel like mini treasuries. Marble floors are worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, and every column has a story carved into it. Frescoes, gilded altars, sculpted reliefs, each a testament to Pistoia's artistic legacy. You can almost hear the echoes of centuries of mass, choir voices, and whispered prayers. Look up at the ceiling. Vaulted, frescoed, painted in rich, muted colors that catch the light just right. Stained glass windows filter the afternoon sun into a golden glow that dances across the nave. And the artwork. Down a quiet stairway, you'll find the crypt of San Zeno. It's one of the oldest parts of the cathedral, dating back to the early medieval period, built to house relics and serve as a sacred foundation for the church above. Here the space changes completely. Low stone arches, cool damp air, and faint traces of frescoes that once covered these walls. The crypt feels intimate, almost hidden. A sharp contrast to the grandeur upstairs. Imagine pilgrims descending here centuries ago, candles in hand, kneeling before relics and whispering prayers. It's a reminder that cathedrals weren't only meant to impress. They were also meant to protect and preserve the most sacred treasures of faith. Stepping out of San Zeno, the cool hush of the cathedral gives way to the bright Tuscan light. The Piazza del Duomo stretches out again, open, airy, and alive. To one side, you've got the Baptistry of San Giovanni, striped in green and white marble. To the other, the gentle rhythm of cafes and locals chatting over espresso. This square is like a time machine that keeps on ticking. It was once the very heart of civic life. Markets, trials, even medieval festivals took place right here. From the grand piazza, let's tuck into something more intimate. The alleys. These are Pistoia's arteries, little streets that twist and weave through daily life. Shops spill their wares onto the pavement, handmade shoes, baskets of sun-dried tomatoes, even shelves of vintage books if you peek inside. And the rhythm here? It's not just tourist-driven. It's also the locals' everyday routine. You'll see people grabbing fresh focaccia from the bakery, kids on bikes weaving between delivery vans, and grandmothers carrying shopping bags that look like they weigh more than they do. And then, almost like a surprise, the street widens and we landed in Piazzetta Spirito Santo. It is one of those tucked-away squares that make Pistoia feel personal. This square isn't big. Just a pocket of space where locals sit on benches, neighbors stop to chat, and sometimes street musicians set the mood. Here is also the Church of Sant'Ignazio di Loyola, a Jesuit church built in the 17th century, with a facade that looks a little weathered but still carries its Baroque dignity. This Jesuit church was built in the 1600s, when the Jesuits were spreading their influence across Europe with architecture meant to impress, inspire, and educate. The interior is like a full-on Baroque theater. White stucco curls around the arches like icing on a cake, gilded details glimmer in the corners, and side chapels glow with paintings of saints. The main altar is dedicated to Sant'Ignazio di Loyola himself, the soldier-turned-saint who founded the Jesuit order. This is the monument to Niccolò Fertaguerri. He was a cardinal, a Pistoian by birth, and a big deal in the 15th century. His monument actually caused some controversy. Too grand, too showy, some said. But honestly, in a square like this, it fits. Squares like Piazzetta Spirito Santo are where history rubs shoulders with everyday life. That's the magic of Pistoia. It never feels like a museum. It feels like a lived-in story. From here, the streets narrow again, and we were making our way towards a pocket of Pistoia that feels almost like a market village. Follow me and you will get what I mean. But before that, don't forget to leave us a comment after watching the video, and let us know what captured your attention. I do read all the comments. We still have lots of amazing videos coming up. We will visit Florence, and I will also bring you to Milan, and even to the Lake Como and its surrounding towns. But right now, we landed at the market village, if I can call it like this. Wooden stalls lined the way, stacked with everything from Tuscan olive oil in little glass bottles to baskets of sun-dried herbs and lavender. The air smells like rosemary and roasted chestnuts, not the bagged supermarket kind, but the ones being charred on a pan right in front of you. There were flower bulbs on sale, bottles of wine on display, little jars of honey, even fresh-cut flowers wrapped in newspaper. Have you ever been in one of those markets where you just want to buy everything even if you have no idea what to do with it later? On my right, like a hidden treasure, the San Giovanni Fuorcivitas comes into view. The name literally means St. John outside the city, because when it was first built in the 11th century, it stood just beyond the medieval walls. The facade you saw is classic Pisan Romanesque, with alternating green and white marble stripes that make it look almost like a zebra stretched across stone. Inside, it feels completely different from the bright piazzas outside. It's dim, solemn, with only slivers of light cutting through narrow windows. You have to pay a small fee to get inside. And tucked away inside is one of the treasures of Pistoia, a marble pulpit carved by Fra Guglielmo in the 13th century, decorated with scenes from the life of Christ. By the time we stepped back outside, the light was golden, the streets were buzzing, and I realized we were close to where we had parked. From grand cathedrals to tiny market alleys, from steak feasts to quiet chapels, Pistoia had given us a full day of surprises. From a feast of Fiorentina steak to basilicas echoing with history, from quiet piazzas to colorful market stalls, Pistoia showed us that it doesn't need crowds or fame to shine. It's authentic, layered, and unforgettable. Next week, we're heading just down the road to Prato, another Tuscan town with its own secrets.